I want to start off by talking about a crisis that is evident in Region 9 in terms of education. The results for CSEC for Region 9 indicate that 5.66, an average of 5.66% passed CSEC for the region. I'll just briefly give you these figures, and I'm sure the ministry can challenge them if they wish, but they're the ministry's figures. St. Ignatius School, St. Ignatius Secondary at CSEC, 8%. Anai Secondary, 7%. Sand Creek Secondary, 6%. Aishalton Secondary, 8%. Karasabai Secondary, 2%. And Kotoka Secondary, 3%. That means that 94% of the students who attended secondary school for the last 5 years in those schools that I've just identified have failed CSEC. That is a crisis. It means that all those students who, I'm not sure they'll graduate, who leave secondary school in Region 9, after having spent 5 years, will have absolutely no certification. Now, this is a national crisis. It's not a political crisis. It's a national crisis. Because we cannot have any part of this country be subject to a fail rate of 90% after secondary school, after spending 5 years. The crisis is compounded by the fact that there are no plans for vocational training for these 95% of students who have just finished 5 years in secondary school without any qualifications. Now, the figures that we have, I believe, are the ministry's figures. And given that this crisis is so severe in Region 9, we would like to request and demand that the Minister of Education or the Ministry of Education releases all the CSEC results for all the regions in the country. Because we cannot possibly have an average pass rate of 5.66% or 6% in a secondary school. It means that for the 5 years that have been spent there, there has been a complete failure of the delivery of quality education. And this brings me to another discussion, the difference between output and outcome. Every day we are regaled in the newspaper and various media that the government is spending more and more money on the construction of school buildings. That's an output. The outcome in Region 9 that we have proof of is that despite whatever they have constructed, the delivery of education and the outcome, which is 5.6% pass rate, is clearly completely disproportionate to and has no relation to the amount of money that's spent on buildings. Region 9 is an indigenous area, and therefore it is a matter of crisis, and I'm going to come on to another subject shortly, that further compounds the way in which the indigenous have been treated by the state. The percentage passes for the 2 years before that were 14% in 2022 for Region 9 and 19% in 2023. There must be some reason for that drastic decline to 5.66. And if this is not a national crisis, then I'm not sure what would be. The Alliance for Change, first of all, wants to propose that there clearly is an immediate, in-depth analysis of the reasons why we have failed the students in Region 9 after 5 years or during the 5 years. That analysis should not take more than 6 weeks. And immediately thereafter, we would like to recommend that there be an implementation of recommendations that have taken from the entire country, national recommendations for education in Region 9. You may recall that the Alliance for Change, at its conference, indicated that there were 5 key areas that we should have 10 to 15-year plans for, and education was the first. Because education is perhaps the most important aspect of development for this country for the next 15 years. If that was not sufficient, you may recall about 4 weeks ago, the Minister of Education said she was going to conduct or cause the ministry to conduct a survey of pit latrines after we had raised this issue, particularly in relation to Philippi. We understand that that study is completed, and we understand that the results of that indicate that there are 77 schools which have pit latrines, 77 schools that have pit latrines. When you get over that, you can pass that back. When you get over that, all of the schools that have pit latrines are in indigenous areas, every single one of them. And they are in excess of 5,000 students who are attending schools which only have pit latrines. I don't wish to be alarmist, but this perhaps is the most clear evidence of discriminatory systems in relation to the indigenous people. Not only are they failing at the rate of 95% in Region 9, but they appear to be the only students who attend facilities, educational facilities, where there are pit latrines. This is a report, and I would just ask the minister if she would be kind enough to release the report. I think it is entitled Ministry of Education, Information and Sanitary Facilities, brackets, lateral. The nation needs to sit down as a nation, not as our various political factions, not as our ethnic factions, and acknowledge that this is a awful, awful form of discrimination that is being perpetuated against our First Peoples. We then have to declare that that is a crisis, and we allocate the resources to immediately replace all the pit latrines in those 77 schools, all of which are in indigenous areas, with freshwater flushing toilets. We cannot in 2024 have this level of unofficial mistreatment and different treatment and secondary treatment, consequently creating persons who are relegated to second-class citizenship. We believe it's a matter of national importance, and the Alliance for Change is willing to participate not only in a national discussion, but in all national efforts that should be undertaken immediately to redress this very, very awful imbalance. We urge the Minister of Education to release the figures of her survey. This is not for the purposes of making political points. We wish to score none. What we wish to do is address this awful situation of less than equal treatment to our brothers and sisters in the indigenous community.